This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, so in the previous in the previous video, we looked into what type of methodology would be really helpful for IT business analyst to work into, and now let's look into the major difference from a BA's perspective in Agile versus the waterfall methodology. By default, the major affecting factor for a business analyst would be in terms of documentation. How would you do the documentation of the requirements? So let's focus on Agile, and in the next segment, we'll look into the way you document for a waterfall project. Okay, so in Agile, what happens is you have this top-down structure, wherein what happens is you have the major business objective that has been well defined. Now you drill it down to multiple epics, and within each epic, you might have multiple features, and every feature in turn might roll down into multiple user stories. So that's how you split it. For example, if we talk about the food delivery app itself, you might say that registration, user account creation is one epic. You can say food item selection as one epic. You can say payment as one epic, and you can say order processing as one epic. Okay. So what have you done is you have taken the entire business objective. What is the business objective in this case? It is to provide the customer an online food delivery option, which is in the format of a mobile app. That would be the major statement. Now we have split it into four big chunks, okay, and you're calling each of it as one epic. This is one way. It's not that this is the only way in which you can split the project. This is one more commonly followed approach. Now I have taken one particular epic as a registration and user account creation, right? So in that I can talk about new user registration, account creation, existing user login, second login approach, third login approach, and forgot password, and user profile updation. All of these things could be multiple features. Now, within each and every feature, again, you'll have specific user stories. When I say login, creation of login, username and password is one thing, and ensuring the terms and conditions are being followed for it could be another user story. So this could be two user stories for this one. Similarly, when we talk about existing user login, you can talk about uh, again, when you talk about login, for example, it could be login for admin, login for customer, login for restaurant owner. They might have different workflows altogether, so their login methodology also could be slightly different. So these all could be different things. So this is how you split the epics, features, and user stories. Don't worry about it. We'll get into those specifications, details, and we'll also look at example user stories. In fact, you will work on creating user stories in the later point of time. At this point of time, it is just to give you a high level overview about how the documentation would be. Okay, and when I mentioned user story, that is something which will be forming the core, or the basic unit of requirement gathering that you would be doing in Agile. So in that, how would you write again is you'll follow a one line statement which talks about who, what, and why. For example, I'll say, as a customer, I want to log in using my username and password so that I can authenticate myself and use the features of the mobile app. Okay, I'm saying as a customer, I want to, then I'm giving the feature. I'm saying I want to log in and using creating using username and password so that, and then I'm telling the benefit why. Okay, so who I'm mentioning the answer as customer, what I'm saying what is required as login part, why, which is a benefit, I'm telling that I want to authenticate myself. So this is how have put it up. Okay, this is the first line which will be in the user story. Below this, you'll mention the acceptance criteria, which is nothing but clear description of the details of this particular process. In the user story, I've just mentioned I want username and password. That's it. But how should that username be? Customer should be able to create what type of username? How would you check the? How would you do the dedupe? means ensuring that this username is not already used by another user. Do you suggest some usernames to the customer? And what about the password? What should be the strength of it? Do you allow weak passwords to be accepted, or what is the suggestions that you give to the customer? All these things will be mentioned in the terms and conditions sort of section, which is nothing but your acceptance criteria. That again can follow a format of given, when, then. We'll get into that details later. Okay, but the point over here is usually this is how you document the requirements in agile project. You create a high level epic, then split it into features, then split those each features into further user stories. Within each user story, you start with a one line statement as a I want, so that this is the format that is followed. Then the typical acceptance criteria will be part of your user story. Apart from that, also user story will have a lot many other things, uh, which we'll look into it later, like what is design requirements, development requirements, or release ticket number, and scope, assigning the user is priority level, the effort estimation, tagging it to the specific feature, and all those things will be there. We will look into it later, but this is to give you an idea. So here, if you see that the way you document it, though it looks very complex, this is the simplest way in which you can put up the information. So in this way, what you're doing is you're focusing on the user, and from the user's perspective, you're creating the requirements documentation. And this is something which happens in every sprint. Whichever sprint you talk about, there will be certain user stories which would have been created, which will be used for the development and testing purpose. So this is not something like you have created all set of user stories initially in the first 2 months of the project, and you're just picking up one after the other and running the next 10 months of the project. That's not the case. Every sprint will have its own set of user stories. Then the third major thing over here is it runs parallelly. Parallel in the sense, if you consider your sprint to be 2 weeks, in this 2 weeks, you're doing the development of the user stories which have been defined earlier, while the business analyst would be creating user stories in this sprint, which will be used for the development in the next sprint. Okay, you get my point. So there, of course, there's a planning process, refinement, grooming, all those things that happen. But to give you a gist of it, what I'm saying is development happens, followed by the creation of user stories happens, immediately followed by development, and then testing again. Immediately you have another set of user stories, development, testing, so on and so forth. So this is something which happens parallelly, or development of previous things are happening while creation of new requirement user stories is happening in that time. So this is how it happens in an agile project. Okay, now that we have got a sort of a high level overview about how requirements are documented in agile. In the next video, I'll talk about how the requirements are documented in a typical waterfall methodology project. You might start with a BRD, or you might directly jump into FRD and all those things. I'll explain those things in the next segment. Okay, thanks everyone.